Thank you, guys. Really glad to, good afternoon, everyone. Really glad to see everyone here. And we are great honor today to co-host this special awesome panel with UVA Career Center. Let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm Patty Pan. I'm the CEO and founder of RevArt. RevArt is a platform connecting artists with brands. Currently, I'm in Singapore now because international market is also very important opportunities. We want to, search for the artists. That's why it's early morning for me, and it's really nice to see everyone. And I also want to hand over to Kate to introduce a little bit of UVA Career Center. And thanks, Kate, for collaborating with RevArt on this event.
Thank you, Patty. I'm super excited to be with everybody today, and hello to any students that are on the meeting or on the call, and also any UVA alumni, because that's really why we're here today. Patty is an important part of our community, and my job at UVA is to really connect students to professionals and to opportunities so that they can enter creative careers. And I've been doing this work, this important work, for about 6 years in the Career Center. We're sort of the underdogs of what you think of as the space where you typically have career fairs and on-campus interviews and things like that. So I welcome anybody who wants to reach out, whether it's artists or students or alumni. If you have opportunities you'd like to advertise or ways that you'd like to build community with student artists, I'd just be happy to hear from anybody. My email is Kate, K-A-T-E @virginia.edu. And Patty is just full of energy and such a help to our community. So I'm excited that she's going to be our moderator today.
Thank you, Kate. And now I will move you like, we will start our panel. And so in the very beginning, I want to mention, because today is a really great opportunity to ask questions for experienced artists and learn from each other. So we encourage you guys to open your camera and also type your question in the chat box. And we will pick some questions and even spotlight you, to ask questions to our great panelists directly. Don't miss this opportunity. And to start with, I really want to introduce a little bit with our today's panelist. And first, I want to introduce Michelle Gagliano. She is born in New York State, but now she lives in Charlottesville now. So I see many of the audience know Michelle quite well. And Michelle has been in this art career actually for over 25 years. Every time she talked with me, she said like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in this forever for like so many thousands of years doing like art industry. So we're really happy to have Michelle today with us and to listen to from her sharing and also experience. And also, I want to introduce you guys with Randall Stasfis, and now he is a UVA graduate and with the distinguished career, and now he is in Brooklyn, and we met in the UVA alumni network. So it's really amazing to find those art lovers and artists in our own community. And he has done a lot of different things in his career, and he focused on the light and materials of hand painted circles, and it's really awesome. He has done collaborations with Target. He also has sold painting to China. I think he mentioned that to me before. And last but not the least, I want to introduce Lachlan Davis. She is very young and very talented, also a UVA graduate alumni. And she was super brave actually to have a gap year during her university, and to discover what she wants to do in the future. And the answer is being an artist. So we are happy she thinks things through, and now we can see a lot of awesome artwork from her. So To start with, I do want each of our panelists to emphasize, to introduce a little bit of their career. And I want to ask you guys, how do you start a career as an artist, and how do you enjoy it so far? I will start with Michelle.
I started my career, again, I feel like 200 years ago, but 20 years ago, I've always kind of been involved in the arts. I've always studied art, but it was then that I really decided to make a go at simply being a studio artist and showing in the galleries. And again, just to back up, Patty, thank you so much for doing this. I think this is brilliant. They did not do any kind of career coaching for artists when I was in school. So this is just brilliant. So what I did was simply, I made a portfolio with a consistent body of work and started putting in for every competition that I could find, I entered. And I kept a folder, and it was this thick of rejections. It was just really a kind of a strong, you really develop yourself and your character and develop a thick skin. And it was every rejection, you learn something. And, but finally, once I made the first yes, that was what turned things. And it was in a gallery in Santa Fe. And once I was able to get into Santa Fe, I then was able to get into a gallery in New Orleans. And then, from there, it developed. But it took quite a bit of fortitude for me to get my foot into the door with that one gallery. And the reason I just applied for every competition that I could be in was just to develop some sort of resume for the galleries to look at. And I think that's still true, that you have to have some sort of exhibition history, I think, for galleries to kind of see what you have to offer.
Cool. And I never know, like you have a lot of rejections, and when you mention after thick skin, it reminds me it's really similar to being an entrepreneur. You need to be thick skin. You need to don't take it personal and move on. Just keep trying, keep doing what you are passionate about. Yeah, yes, I can really resonate with that. How about Randall? How's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I also want to say thank you because I when I tell my experience, it starts at UVA, and so I'm happy that there's a way to hopefully give back a little bit. I was always interested in art, but I didn't start taking it seriously until I was at UVA, and I started taking classes there and sort of fell in love. But it wasn't until my junior year that I switched to an art major. So from there, it was like this very fast scramble to try to complete a major. And I went on to do a summer program at Chautauqua Institute, really close to Jamestown, where Michelle's from. And that was wonderful and was a stepping stone for me to go to graduate school for painting at American University in Washington, D.C. Very lucky. It was a thing where there was a full fellowship. And through that whole process, starting at UVA, I was just fortunate to meet wonderful people who could help me find the way to the next step. And that continued after graduate school. I moved to New York. A lot of my classmates moved to New York also. And I think there were two things that happened when I got to New York that were really important. One was I got a job. My first job in New York, my day job was at a mural studio, a really big mural studio with a whole lot of other artists. So I'd be working on a team with maybe 20 artists. I got to know some people that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And so some of us started to do our own shows. Back then we called them guerrilla art shows. Now I think we have a nicer name for them. They're usually called pop-ups, right? Where we just would find a space and however many people we could get together to split the cost and do a show. It was kind of a big party. And those were ways to meet more people. And I set up a studio practice in New York in 1996. It took until 2000. I got sort of had a random studio visit that led to my first commercial gallery exhibit, and it was in San Francisco. I had to go pretty far afield for that, and then have been just kind of trying to iterate and crank along since then. I had my 16th solo show happened in the fall of 2019 in New York City with a gallery called Blank Space. Along the way, I've got to try a few experiments, including some licensing, as Patty mentioned. Did a licensing thing with Target, which was interesting. And the most recent thing that I got to do like that was a lot of fun. I did a record album cover for someone this past year, and that just this past week it's been fun. He's an Irish musician, and his album just appeared on the folk charts in the UK at number 12. So it's kind of fun to see my artwork on an album cover like that. Lots more I could talk about, but maybe I can answer questions later.
Cool. Yes, I really like your optimistic attitude. Like, sounds like you're everywhere and trying different things and really trying new opportunities. I think it's, I can also resonate with that. Sometimes you need to go with the flow, right? And do your best.
Yes,
and yeah, and also I want to hand over to Lachlan now and to introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi, I'm Lachlan. I'm an oil painter in Charleston, South Carolina. Like Patty said, I am pretty fresh to this. I graduated from the University of Virginia in 2018. So I've been pursuing this art career for the past 3 years. It really started, like Patty said, I took a gap year instead of my 3rd year of college. So I had a little bit of extra credits from advanced placement classes. We have to declare a major before 3rd year. I had no idea what I wanted my major to be. And so I took a leave of absence, and it was definitely a pretty big leap. But I think what I realized is that what art requires is time. And so being able just to kind of take myself out of the academic rush and just spend hours at the easel really opened my eyes to how much I loved it. And I kind of just saw the opportunities come before me. It definitely started out just as a hobby, a release. And slowly but surely people started paying attention. At the end of my 4th year at UVA, the coffee shop that I worked for, Millie Joe's Coffee Roasters, if you know what that is in Charlottesville, they had a first art exhibition at their shop, and so they kind of used me as a guinea pig because they knew me and they knew I did some paintings, and it was pretty last minute. And so like they were like, okay, you have a month, can you put together an exhibition? And of course, like you always say yes. And so I was like, sure. And so I spent a month during my 4th year just trying to make as many paintings as I could and put together this exhibition. And I think that was really when I realized that this is what I wanted to do and pursue, especially after graduating. So from there, I just started making paintings, taking commissions, and building up my portfolio.
Cool. I really like when you mention art needs patience and a lot of time, and it perfectly leads me to the next question. because I know being artist is super hard because I'm not an artist, but I'm doing business with art industry now. It's very different from the industry I worked before. It's super slow, need a lot of patience, and sometimes need some luck as well. And I really want to ask you guys, what makes you, go to your studio every day? And what makes you, stick to it, even though you get a lot of rejections, but you think, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be successful at this. How do you think about this?
Early on when I decided this was going to be my career and path, I decided to treat it as a job. And so I gave myself, and I was a bit unusual because when I started going full time with the art career, I was in my mid-30s. So I had two young children. So as soon as they went to school, I decided this is going to be my time. And so I still try to keep a very good schedule today. But yeah, so I made it like, this is my job. I have to be in the studio at this time and this time. And, I kept it very, and for me, it also helps psychologically to just go right in, and suddenly that was my space. So I didn't really have those writer blocks or artist blocks, because the minute I walked in the studio, I just was able to release and start working.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what Michelle said about you have to treat it like a job, because I mean, it essentially is your job, if that's the way that you're making your primary income. And so that's definitely a good motivation, is to pay the bills. But I think that it's important to give yourself deadlines. The two ways that I primarily give myself deadlines is either by doing commissions with clients. So essentially, it's like having an assignment from a stranger, and you kind of get to take this project and this challenge that may be different from what you do on your own. It's kind of like a collaboration almost, but it gets you outside of your comfort zone, and you're able to kind of push yourself more, and you're motivated to show up and put that work forward because somebody's depending on you for it. And then the other is to really sign up for exhibitions and kind of find spaces to show work and have a specific date in which you have to push forth a work. And so, for instance, I mentioned like the first exhibition I did, it was only a month in advance. Hopefully that will never happen again. But if you have like a few months in advance to, put together a collection of work with a specific theme, it really pushes you to show up, because you can't quite procrastinate on art. It's the kind of thing, like I said, it takes time, it takes hours. And if you don't show up from the beginning, then it's just really unpleasant.
Yeah, both of those resonate a lot with me, and so I agree wholeheartedly. I think that the best, the most important deadlines for me have always been exhibitions. The thing that you guys left out is coffee. It takes me a lot of coffee to get things done, and the other thing that it took me a long time to get good at, and now I think I understand, is I need weekends too. I did learn to show up early on, but I sometimes probably overdid it a little bit, and having a break is really important for me personally. I also think just for my eyes and my mind, that little bit of recoup time makes me a more efficient worker when I'm in the studio.
Cool. It's like I used to have a mentor, and when I asked him whether I should start a RevArt, and he told me, actually, he asked me whether I'm really passionate about it. That's really something I want to do for my life. Then I said, yes, that's something I really want to do with my life. I don't want to do those, those boring big company or corporate jobs. Then he said, like, you should do that. You just keep your passion and work hard, work very, very hard, and be smart as well. And you can find your way. I think it's really similar to the artists as well. And I always think trying to leverage resources are very important in this journey, because you want to grab all the opportunities you can have, find those helpers, supporter campaigns. So how do you find those resources? I think many people might be very curious to know.
So clarify which resources?
Yeah, how do you find the supporters, resources, and where do you find them, and what kind of those resources will be most helpful for you as an artist?
Yeah, I read something once that resonated with me a lot. I don't exactly agree with it, but it made me think, and that is, someone wrote that grad school for artists it's debatable whether that's a good idea, because these days especially it can be a lot of money to go to grad school in the United States for art. So the idea that this person threw out was, instead of going to grad school, take that money, however much you were going to spend on grad school, it's a pretty good sum of money, go to New York, spend enough time there to meet some people, and throw a huge party and invite everybody. Make sure they remember you. And because that's one of the important parts of it, really. Doing commissions, business, it's all relationships, and it's getting to know people and to trust people. That really makes it go, especially over the long haul, because the people that you can work with more than once are the ones who sustain and support a real career.
That's so true. And it's kind of like finding your tribe. Yeah. So you go to these, in Charlottesville, it has such a beautiful, supportive art community, and so it was really nice to kind of finding my tribe here, because they can be so incredibly supportive, all the galleries, all of your mentors, and in all of my galleries, I've been with 3 of my galleries for 20 years, and they've become family, and they are a support system completely.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely interesting to see how social media and Instagram has really affected the way that I've been able to move forward in my career. Especially, I mean, Instagram definitely played a huge role in just putting your portfolio out there. And I mean, having that be kind of the central mode of like social media and communication throughout my college experience, even at the end of my high school experience. And so I think that there's definitely pros and cons to that, where I think there's a lot of pressure to present yourself a certain way and to constantly present yourself and to constantly put forward new material. And that can be overwhelming. And sometimes it can also detract from the message that I actually want my paintings to pursue. But on the other hand, it's amazing how many people that you can reach with it, and you just like keep on putting new paintings up, and you slowly but surely just have this catalog of work out there. And it's amazing. I started my Instagram page for my art, I guess that would have been like 2015 or something. And so since then, you can just really see how much I've improved in my craft and my skill, and like just how the paintings have changed over time. I think the other aspect of resources, I mean, if you're an artist, you're essentially like a one-person small business. And so starting a business out of school, it gives you the opportunity to learn so many diverse skills, whether it's marketing, whether it's accounting, whether it's client communications or web development, like all of those things, you are able to develop those skills and really apply them to your own enterprise. And so I think that just the opportunity to like learn and learn and learn and just take whatever new opportunity comes up, I really appreciated that every time.
Yeah, I really love all of your sharings. And actually, today we kind of, we invite you guys for a purpose because you have like different years actually in this career. And you also tackle this industry very different approach. I know Michelle is more going to like the, using the galleries, that the, you know, the connection with the galleries and also student manager, all those kind of resources. For Randall, because you're in New York, you're literally in the center of the world, I think. And Longshan, I know you run a big group of Instagram followers. And another thing I noticed actually is because now the technology changes so rapidly, especially during the COVID, it poses a lot of challenges and also opportunities to own artists and own this industry as well. And several things I want to share with our audience. As Randall just sharing, people think, okay, going to the graduate school, maybe it's not that important anymore. And another very interesting fact is street artists use, you know, they don't go to the galleries, but now the auction house sells their paintings maybe in $500,000 or even millions of US dollars. They really gain great popularity among the young audience. And also we have noticed there are several AIs already doing the paintings now. They're doing the paintings, creations now. So I want to ask your opinions. How do you see those change? Do you think it's a challenge or an opportunity?
I think it's a huge opportunity. When I first moved to Charleston, I actually worked for one of the very like old school art galleries downtown. And I think that kind of seeing the behind the scenes of the gallery world is so important for an artist, because you see the paintings that sell, you see the people that come in, what they look for, what makes them buy a painting, how the gallery like does its finances, makes a profit. But at the same time, you can kind of see that there's this divide between that quote unquote like old school gallery world and this new world of Instagram and AI, and how the art market is really going from artist straight to collector rather than like having the middleman in between. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities there. It is hard because there's kind of like the social media deluge now. I follow a ton of artists on Instagram and I just get exhausted when I go through the feed. I've mostly stopped at this point because there's just not necessarily a filter to, there's not somebody saying, here's what you should look at. We're in this like really saturated attention economy. And I think that can sometimes be tough because how in the world are you supposed to put your work out there when everyone's putting their work out there? I don't know if y'all have that challenge also.
You know, again, because I'm more gallery based, that I find, you know, I'm in a couple of galleries where the owners are young and they really know how to leverage the whole social media environment, you know, and because I mean, I'm so old school. Like I came from the galleries when you would send in slides, you know, and the galleries would say, we're going to have a website, but we don't want you to have one. And then they said, well, we want you to have a website and we want you to link us. Well, we want you to have a website. We want you to have Facebook. We want you to have Instagram. We want you to do this and link everything. And that's kind of when like, whoa, I need time to paint, you know, and And so, you know, the money that I earn from my painting, I do put back into my studio. And I feel very fortunate to have help to do all this, because it is difficult. I can't imagine how much time you have to spend now with the whole, I mean, Instagram. I saw it was, I know Kristen is here from Second Street, and it was really impactful that she said curators look at Instagram. You know, I just, it's a whole new world, but you were kind of, I think this generation is going to have a much easier time with it.
Yeah, I wish I would have had the tools that we have now, instead of using slides at the beginning, for sure. It is got a lot of that stuff has gotten so much better. It's so much easier to send images, and that's one of the most important things we end up doing, even though slides were much more tactile and kind of beautiful objects, and that's sort of what I'm in it for. It's way more efficient to send a digital image. The balance of who you're working for, whether you're working for yourself or for Instagram, is something I really struggle with too. And I think that it's important to find a way to put your focus on something that you can own a little bit. Your own website, I think, is the thing that is that now. Although what Lachlan described with having your whole development in Instagram is also super super useful. Like that kind of, it's like the perfect visual blog for a painter is Instagram. But having that central point of reference from your own website is pretty important. My own experience has been a little different than Michelle's, in that I've worked with a number of galleries over the years, and some of them have been just, you know, totally spectacular, but something will happen. One of the most successful financially shows that I've ever had, that dealer has since passed away. So you know, at that point, once that moment happened, and I realized that if I didn't have the name of the person that had collected that painting, and that was gone. That guy took, you know, he had most of it in his head, and so it taught a lesson about even though you need to use all these containers for communicating about what you're doing, having something that you can have a way to center and own a little bit is pretty important.
Cool. Actually, it's really lovely, you know, to hear you guys to share your opinion on this. And I personally do talk with a lot of artists, but some artists really being hesitate actually sometimes, you know, to share things on social media, and also doing very commercial stuff, because they're feared of, you know, it might distance themselves from going to gallery, or in the future going to the museums. And how do you think about that? And how do you think and what actually you are doing daily with your social media or other new technology?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, the coming out of school, I found the transition from grad school to the working world pretty tricky, because I think I was taught things that were, you know, that you know, I should be worried about overexposure, or should be worried about being too commercial. And for myself, the thing that was very useful was I had spent not quite a year in Charlottesville, apprenticed to a goldsmith there. So I got to see a small creative business going full tilt, and everything they needed to do to make that work. And then again, working for the mural studio in New York was taking like everything I'd learned about painting and using it in the most commercial way possible. We were doing stuff for Disney, for casinos. And so sort of everything was irreverent in a commercial way. And that was really important for me, because I think I could have gone into kind of a spiral trying to fulfill some of the things I was taught in school. So that's not entirely an answer to what Patty asked, but maybe you guys can help.
You know, I mean, with my personal experience, and the galleries that I'm in, I think it's really interesting how from when I started, how the mindset is changing as far as towards that whole process. Because, you know, I'm kind of in 3 different styles of galleries. I have one that is really about selling, you know, they sell tons. There, you know, it's a commercial based gallery, you know, and from that one, I had to kind of step back and slow down a bit, because I wanted my work to grow. I didn't want to make the same thing over and over. And then the other gallery that I'm in really more caters, not so much just commercial, but really building private collections, you know, and really helping collectors build their collection. And then the other kind of template gallery that I'm in is about also building private collections, but also having museum exhibitions with the artist and kind of letting them develop in that way. And, you know, it's interesting that that's the one that is looking at, they would like to do some merchandising. They would like to do, you know, these other kind of aspects that 20 years ago was thought of, you shouldn't do that as a fine artist. But now I think everything is just changing so much and so rapidly that, yes, it's okay to go into that, step into that venue. I don't know, again, if that answered the question as well, but that's just my personal experience. And it kind of helps me decide where my practice goes.
I think, oh, sorry, go ahead, Patty.
Go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's interesting because I think when I first started, I kind of had this vision of, to be an artist was really about putting forth a very kind of like glossy version of yourself and your work. It kind of had to be really curated and almost perfect to some extent, which is a little bit of paralyzing when you're first starting out. And I really had to change my mindset from thinking about it in terms of, like, I'm working towards creating this portfolio that's the best I can possibly do, and that gets kind of like an end all be all, and someday I'll get there. Instead, to kind of putting myself out there as, here's me improving, and knowing that if I just keep on putting myself in front of the easel and creating work, kind of having faith that that improvement will come over time, and knowing that if there's an audience, that I hope that they'll appreciate being able to witness that improvement. And I don't know if that quite makes sense, but I think that that's kind of like a shift that I'm seeing in the attitudes towards art, at least with like a younger generation, is that we're kind of willing to be a little bit messier, because there's not necessarily this huge separation between the collector and the artist. The artist is there and accessible, and yeah, you can show the process photos, and you can, like, sometimes I'll kind of do a time lapse of myself, like as I'm actually making the painting. And I think kind of being able to show that behind the scenes is, instead of being worried about showing your weak spots, it's amazing to kind of show how you get to the finished product.
That's a really good point. And I do want to have a follow-up question specifically for each of you. And I know Misha is really, you have a lot of like wonderful things happening, like projects going on now. Congratulations on the exhibition on museum. I think that's kind of the final goal, or like, you know, the dream for many artists to get into the museum. Could you give some tips and share a little bit how artists can get into the museum world?
You know, it was, I took the opportunity of COVID to kind of take the time to go in the directions that I want to go, you know, as far as, you know, I called it my someday projects. You know how you have all those projects that you're going to get to someday. And then during lockdown, I thought, this is great. I'm going to do all my someday projects. And so that's when I focused on kind of moving into to having more museum exhibitions that, you know, things that I you know, I still do my work that I'm passionate about, but I have so many different interests that I just needed another outlet. And so I was able to obtain a few exhibitions. And then my gallery in Rome is very proactive about getting museum exhibitions for all their artists. So I feel very fortunate about that. But it was really, you know, I don't know if it's just dumb luck. I mean, I'm kind of delighted, but don't know what, you know, I just kind of showed up every day and tried to really be present in my work and to write about my work and take it into a different direction. And was expecting to be told no quite a bit because that's my default. But, you know, the museum said yes. So that was really kind of exciting.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I want to ask Randall, because you have done international artwork selling by yourself, and also collaborate with big companies for the licensing. How do you do that? What kind of tips you want to share to our young artists and also students if they want to pursue this kind of opportunity?
Yeah, well, doing stuff overseas is a lot of fun, and you know, probably makes intuitive sense that you got to want to travel a little bit, and traveling is how you know, you got to make friends other places in order to find the connections for that sort of thing. You know, the other thing you can do is find places where you'll get an international group of peers. So you know, I said bad things about graduate school earlier, but I definitely met people from other parts of the world as part of participating in grad school. So that's like I had a show in Italy. I was in a group show in Italy early on, and that was completely because of someone I met in grad school. And then, you know, galleries definitely help with that too. The one gallery that I work with has connections in Korea, so that also has led to some sales in Asia, and that's 100% them. The licensing thing is I still have more to learn about how to do that well. That came to me through someone who had seen my work in a show, and just after some time approached the gallery initially, I guess, and then me about it. I learned that it's difficult to work as an individual artist with a very large company, that you need help to do that. And I didn't quite have enough help with that target project. That's why I'm excited to meet someone like Patty. It's you need allies when you're working with large companies. But it's I think it's worth doing, and it's amazing how people respond to the brand name. As it also goes against everything I learned in school. Having a brand name attached to your work is it's very, very, very commercial. But people from my hometown, people that I didn't know very well, just very excited about seeing that big company supporting an individual artist that they knew.
Yeah, that's totally true, and I can resonate with that, because when I talked with Randall about like licensing, now we are do work with some brands, and have some of our artists to get opportunity. And I have the meeting with that company. Literally, I met 4 departments, like so many people, like facing them, and talk from marketing, production, website, everything. It can be very challenging for the artists. I totally agree. And I want to hand over to Lachlan, and I want to ask, because even though you grow, so fast, I'm so amazed by how fast you grow as an artist. And you run an Instagram with a lot of followers, and I think you sell most of your paintings through Instagram as well. How do you manage that? Any tips from there?
Oh goodness, it's amazing, because I think that I really rely on kind of doing one project at a time well. And so when somebody reaches out to me, I treat that as like that's the only thing that I'm thinking about until the next project comes. And I think that it's really helpful, because a lot of my commissions or sales will come from either I'll have a client will have a good experience and they'll talk to their friend, and then their friend will reach out to me, or it'll be a mutual friend of a friend. And I think that it's amazing how many connections that we have that we don't even realize that we have. And I know I the way that I view it is I feel like I'm still like just right at the beginning of this thing. There's so much room to grow, and that's one of the things I love about it, is because there's so much room to improve, and I can kind of see yes, how far I've come since I started, but also like this is just the start. There's like, when I compare myself to people a few years down, it's exciting. But yeah, so I would just really recommend taking it one project at a time, putting your best effort into that project in front of you, knowing that it won't be perfect ever, but it's about getting the paintings out there and putting yourself in front of the easel and making sure that the client is smiling, because that'll lead more work down the line.
Nice. And even though you guys make great achievements in your career, I bet you guys also made a lot of mistakes during the past. And so my next question is, what's the biggest mistake you made in your career and you want to remind our audience?
I did not back up any of my art files, and I lost over 900 images and information and where they went and everything. Big mistake. Big mistake. I still don't like to think about it.
I can resonate with that. That's why we always tell artists, like, protecting your IP, protecting your images, store in safe place, and have several copies. it's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like 10 years ago. And ever since then, I've just been a dog about making sure.
Cool. How about Randall and Lachlan?
I think it's a little meta, but I should have made more mistakes. I'm probably a little cautious for an artist sometimes. And, you know, if I could go back and tell myself 20 years ago what to do different, there's, you know, there is a lot of luck, and I'm so grateful for all the things that have gone well. But I would tell that kid to make more mistakes and to take risks, because it's funny. I think that a lot of things that I thought were really important just weren't. What I needed to do was just take a risk and not worry about it. But that's something I can continue to do from here.
That's so entrepreneur. It's definitely the first the best, because for us is learn fast, fail fast, and move on. Yeah. Make as many mistakes as you can, but also learn from them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
How about Lachlan? Yeah.
There's what I've noticed in the art community or the creative community is there's kind of this huge aversion to talking accounting or taxes or business. And I think that when you're first starting out, really taking the time before you make sales or a lot of transactions to really just kind of understand what you're working with financially, because when I started out, I had a really fuzzy understanding of all of that, and it was kind of always in the back of my head. I felt like I might be making mistakes that I didn't know about, or I was just like, I just wasn't confident that I was doing the right thing financially. Like I was saving my receipts, but I didn't quite know like why I was saving my receipts. And in that first year, really taking time to learn the rules and make sure that I was following everything that a small business needs to follow, it made me so much more confident and comfortable, because when I was moving forward in sales, I knew that when I made money, I know exactly how much profit was within that, how much I would need to like save for paying taxes that following year, how I needed to report sales tax. I think all of those things, it's scary when you don't have the context for it, but just putting in the time to research it and know the rules makes you so much more comfortable later on. And then the other mistake is I think shipping plays a huge role in the art world. It is so expensive, and you don't know how expensive it is until you show up to FedEx and you're so excited because you sold this large painting. It's a 30 by 40. You're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You've charged the client. You've said, oh yeah, shipping's included. No, don't say shipping's included, because at FedEx they're gonna say it's $250 to ship this painting just a few states away. And obviously that happened, but it's scary. And so getting the quote beforehand from a few shipping companies, and knowing that if it's a large painting, it's going to cost a lot to ship, because it's a scary surprise for sure.
You cannot think about shipping. Always have the collector pay for shipping, because it is so onerous. It really is.
And if possible, it isn't always, have the gallery pay for shipping when you're going far away, especially. If could I follow up on what you guys said? So good, but when you make the mistakes, and when you find these spots where you takes extra work, like the business stuff for me also takes extra work. I'm a better painter than I am a business person. That's why I became an artist. But it took me a long time to just understand that everyone has weak spots. You make mistakes, you discover your weak spots, and then you ask for help, or if possible, get help with maybe somebody else can help you do that part. it took me a long time to realize that it was a really good idea for me to have a bookkeeper. And it's just that makes a big difference for me.
And that's one thing. It's like I've learned now that I'm older to fire myself from a lot of things.
Yes.
Because I would have fired myself because, I wish I would have worked in an office or, had just the basic skills that I don't have. I had to fire myself.
That's really very insightful, and it's really good actually for us to hear you guys. For me, sure you want to fire yourself for so many roles. That's how we can step in and help you guys. We also have a question from the audience, but we're running out of time a little bit. So so maybe one of you can take this question. So do you guys have mentors in your career, and how and where do you find them? Anyone want to jump in? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say that for me, again, that I often think about the small business that I worked for in Charlottesville, in between undergrad and grad school, that just being there with someone who was doing all the things was really important. And another thing I would do differently if I went back was I definitely would just work for an artist, like Michelle, for a while when I'm starting out, to see how an artist who's making a go of it as a business does things. That would be that would have shortened some of my path, probably.
Cool, nice. Yeah, I think finding some art communities, a lot of like galleries or art organizations like us, or other non-profit organizations, actually they do offer this kind of mentorship, and just try to find the supporters, as many as you can. That's also some tips from me. And so one last question, because time flies, we cannot have this wonderful discussion. And I want you to give one final tip, one final suggestion for all the audience here who want to be outstanding artists in the future.
My tip is actually very simple and very basic. Just, I guess I've learned through the years of dealing with a lot of, curators and collectors and galleries and museums, is just treat everyone as you want to be treated. I've seen a lot of horror stories with a lot of other artists that I work with, and how they would treat even the people who worked in the gallery, the bookkeeper, or, everyone should be treated with respect. To me, that's just my own tip, because I've seen a lot of egos happen too much, and that, I think, will destroy a career quickly.
Yeah, my tip follows on that, I think, somewhat, which is that yes, very much your relationships with people are going to matter over time, and so you want to treat people as you want to be treated, because you're looking for it to come back around. That's what you're in it for, and to that end, you want to stay in touch with people. It's worth more of your time than you might think up front, just to stay in touch with people and maintain relationships over time. Instagram and Facebook, and who knows what's next, Clubhouse or whatever, those things are amazing tools for keeping in touch with people, so we can do that maybe better than we used to be able to. Whatever works for you, put in a little effort for that.
I think my last piece of advice is that it takes so many bad paintings to get to the good ones. And you have to be willing to put yourself in front of it and make bad art sometimes. And that's okay, because we're all there. And I mean, whatever you're trying to do new next, we're always a beginner in some aspect every time. And we should be, like, we shouldn't be creating the same art over and over and over again. And so when I try something new, it doesn't look great when I first do it. And then I try again, and then I try again. And eventually it works. But I think kind of having the humility to make bad art is helpful. Maybe not post it, but you got to get it out of your system so that you can get to the good stuff.
Wonderful. I think those are really good tips, not only for the artists, but also for anyone, want to success in their career. And I have learned a lot today, and I really thanks for you guys again to join this panel and sharing your experience to the audience. And I also want to thank everyone, the audience joining us today, and do follow us, because we do follow RevArt and stay updated with us, because we do plan to host more such kind of events to support artists to advance their career. We will also later host some webinars focused on bookkeeping, accounting, all those kind of skills. We think you guys might need some help with, and also legal advices as well. So stay tuned with us or check with RevArt Artist Program. And thanks for everyone for joining today, and hope to see you guys later soon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.